I'm here at Kameraz with my favorite camera provider, Wilhelmus. I'm an architect and I'm starting out and I'm interested in filmmaking. What camera should I choose?
I would recommend a full frame camera. Sony makes a great value for money camera in full frame. The A7 IV is a great hybrid camera between great stills at 35 megapixels and great 4K footage. Once one goes over the 60,000 Rand range into the S range or the low megapixel sensitive range, A7 S3s, FX30s, FX3s. Those are great cameras, but they are more cinema-centric as opposed to still-centric because they are low megapixel. So it comes down to what one wants to do. From an architecture point of view, a full-frame camera is always going to be better.
Okay, so you mentioned the Sony FX30. Do you have one? Okay, so this is obviously now the cinema, more like a cinema line type camera.
Sony FX3 is the full frame version and the FX30 is the crop sensor version. Absolutely nothing wrong with this. Fully articulated screen, 12 megapixel sensor, like the A7S3,
wow,
the FX3, etc. So this is an incredibly cool camera to start with. This has everything one would want to not only do architecture, you could do full feature cinema for international release of a camera like this. For anything social media related, anything that you are going to be broadcasting, this camera would do the trick.
Should we pop a lens on this guy and see what we can do? Okay, so here you can see it's got a slightly smaller sensor than a full frame camera. This is a 50mm Sigma art lens. Just look at the size of the glass of this thing. Absolutely beautiful. This one is a 105mm. I mean, just look at the size of this thing, the glass.
The longer the larger that number is, numerically, the longer the focal length is, and that means that it creates a tighter angle of view from the viewer's perspective. So one has to step back with a long lens like this. If you had let's say an apartment building or an office block, you would have to probably stand 2 blocks away to get the apartment building.
Fit the whole thing in, yeah.
Absolutely. But if you were limited for space, this is definitely not the lens you would be using. You would be using a wide angle lens like a 16-35 on a full frame camera or a 10-18. Sigma make a great little 10-18 on a crop sensor camera like the FX30.
So you can put a Sigma lens onto a Sony camera.
There are great third-party lenses that are a fraction of the price for someone starting out. Sigma make great lenses, Tamron, Tokina, they all make reasonably priced prime lenses for Sony, full frame and cropped. So yeah, there are lots of options out there.
Well, most people have access to a cell phone, and the sensors, the lenses, the cameras on cell phones have really improved by leaps and bounds over the past few years. How does that compare to having one of these little point and shoots in your pocket?
Look, a cell phone or a point and shoot camera is a great tool for a guerrilla style videographer because you always have it with you. Compact cameras like the ZV-1, those are great things. Cell phones are awesome. The one thing I would like to say for aspiring videographers, filmmakers, the camera is but one small part of the equation. You need the skill, you need the storytelling ability, you definitely need great sound to make something work. Cameras like this have additional microphone input jacks, specifically so you could put high-end microphones in. Sound is an incredibly large part of it. That's why I would always try and budget quite a large chunk of my available cash, my budget for the cameras, for sound equipment.
So let's talk about lenses. This is a very wide angle lens. You can see the curvature on it, it's like an eyeball. And that's going to show you a very wide view.
Yeah, 180 degrees. In some cases even, you can sort of see behind yourself.
Compared to that, this is a big zoom lens. This is a 200 to 400mm lens. This is if you want to spy on your neighbor.
Well, yes, this is if you wanted a very narrow angle of view, you are far away from your subject matter and you needed to punch in without getting close.
And then what have you got there?
Okay, so this is a Sony lens, a 24-70 2.8 G Master 2. This would be your general purpose working lens.
So that's actually what I'm shooting with there. Yeah. That's like my lens. Love that lens.
Yeah, absolutely great. These are your bread and butter lenses. This is what you're going to be doing probably 90% of your work with. Specialized lenses like these, you have them in your kit, but you possibly only use them once or twice. You must know the characteristics of each lens and then know as a cinematographer or as a DP when to use them and how to use them.
Let me put this down, my arm's getting heavy. So let's talk costs. And we're going to stick to the Sony for now. So let's assume everyone listens to our biased opinion and goes for Sony.
This is a Sony ZV-1, compact camera, non-interchangeable lenses, zoom on it, built in, great little microphone. These come in at 17,000 Rand for the first generation, up to 23,000 Rand on the second generation camera. The ZV-10, this is an absolute workhorse. This is a staple of the startup cinematographer. Very basic lens. They are sometimes on special at below 14,000 Rand, currently 17,000 Rand.
And then this is the FX30. So this is if you're starting to go a little bit more professional.
These bodies come in at between 40 and 45,000 Rand, but you do get an option with the XLR handle, which I highly recommend, which comes in at about 52,000 Rand.
Okay, so in terms of the full frame, this is a Sony a7S III.
So a7S III, great cinema camera, 12 megapixels. This is a phenomenal cinema camera. This is my cinema camera of choice, and they are currently around about the 70,000 Rand mark.
What I found when I was starting out is that I could only afford one camera body and I had budget for one lens.
A zoom lens is a great thing to start with. Even a cheap zoom lens with a not so spectacular f-stop is something absolutely anyone can try, and you will find even as you progress, a zoom lens is your workhorse. I don't think anyone should dictate to you how you shoot. It is a great advantage to know your equipment and to know the physics of each lens and how they react and what they look like. Find your own style, but don't be limited.
Thank you, Vilalamis. Really appreciate the time.